Welcome to the Richard Lloyd USA YouTube channel. I'm Richard Lloyd. Today I will be making a video on a Linksys product. This is the EA8300 router, and it's been a great little router for me. I was recently installing a third-party firmware in it called OpenWRT, and I wanted to revert it back to stock, but I couldn't find any way to do it, and I figured out how to do it using a serial connection, and in this video I'll show you how to do that. This is also the same way as you would recover it from a bad or a flash gone wrong, where it's just doing a boot loop, rebooting and rebooting and rebooting. The procedure to reinstall the stock firmware and to stop a loop are the same. You use a serial connection and you load the stock firmware back into it. So this video will take care of two problems. Here's one more thing about this router. It has something called Uboot. And what Uboot is a two-partition basically structure in the router that basically has two copies of the firmware on it. And basically, if one gets corrupted, the other one can take over, and vice versa. Okay, and it's kind of a neat feature of Linksys to put in, because basically it makes it a lot more reliable and less likely to go into a boot loop. But I've seen it, I've done it. I couldn't do it twice, but I did do it once. Basically, I'm going to show you right here on this video, that on the next clip, how to revert from the first partition to the second, or from the second to the first, depending on what's going on. Just using the power switch on your router to boot it in a certain way, and that resets it. Okay, so I'll run the video right now. All right, I'm going to show you what I call the Hail Mary rescue for the EA8300, and I believe it's the same for the 7500 as well. What you do is you power it up, and you wait for the Linksys light to flash twice. Then you shut it down for 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. Boot it up again. Wait for the Linksys light to flash twice. Shut it down again for 3 seconds. 2, 3. Boot it up again. Wait for the Linksys light to flash twice. And then shut it down for 3 seconds, or as long as you want at this point. But you have to wait for it to flash twice and flash off. So in other words, you shut it off after the second time it shuts, the Linksys light shuts down. Now, if that worked, you just turn it on full power now and wait. And if this thing has two partitions in it, so you may get lucky and have the alternate partition still working okay. Right? So then you don't have to take the cover off, do the serial thing I'm going to show you how to do in this video, or any of that. It'll just boot into the Linksys, the other Linksys firmware that's stored on it. And then at that point, I would suggest strongly that you flash the latest version of the Linksys firmware into the router. Therefore, both partitions will have Linksys, working Linksys firmware in them, and therefore your router, if you're lucky, will work just fine. So here we are, it's booting back up again. And again, I don't have a, this router here has two different versions of firmware in it. It has the Linksys router firmware and the DD-WRT firmware in it. So again, the procedure is the same, whether you've got a router that's bricked in a boot loop, or you have third-party firmware and you want to remove that firmware and revert back to the original. Again, if you have the original firmware on one of those two partitions, then doing this procedure should get you back to the original firmware. If that procedure actually worked for you and your router is up and running, you've got your stock Linksys firmware back up and you can log into it, you're done, you're fixed, right? I would suggest strongly that you install or update the firmware one more time, even with the same one that you had before. It doesn't matter, because that way you have the firmware on both partitions working. So if ever either one goes south on you, you still have the option of running that Uboot reboot rescue that I just showed you. And again, all that stuff will be, all my notes will be in the video description below, along with links for the firmware, software, and hardware I used in this video. Some of those are affiliate links, and when you purchase through those links, you help me out and a little bit, and you get the same product as I used in the video, number one. Number two, it doesn't cost you any more than going directly to Amazon, so this way you don't have to hunt for it. I take you right to the product, you buy it, it doesn't cost any more than it would any other way, and you help me out. So I appreciate that. So let's get on with fixing this, because I assume if you're still watching this video, then the Uboot rescue did not work for you. So what you need now is to hook this up or configure this router in a way that you can connect to it with a serial connector. Okay, let's go through the pictures on that. Okay, here's the stuff I used to do this. I used a block of pins right here that I had kicking around. It's just a connector, but the pins were perfect for the motherboard, or not the motherboard, the board, circuit board on the router, the main board. I used the forceps to hold the pins down, so I didn't, get my fingers anywhere near the hot solder or the soldering iron. I've used this is the CP2102 breakout board. It basically goes from USB to serial and talks to your serial device, which is, in this case, going to be the main board on this router. A little bit of solder, we need that to put those pins in. You're also going to need this special T10 Torx driver. What's special about it? It's a security driver, and I'll show you what the difference is between that and a regular Torx. Basically, a regular Torx will not take the screws out of the case on this, and you will not be able to take it apart. You need a security Torx. You need a driver and, of course, a soldering iron, and this is what I used. Let's go next. Here's a close-up on those pins. I basically cut them out and solder them into the board, and you'll see that shortly. I used this beautiful locking pliers called a forceps to do that. And, here's the T10 Torx head that or driver that we're going to use. But there's the big deal. The security is that dimple or that hole in the center of that Torx driver. That allows it to slip into the screw and actually turn it off. Without that, you won't be able to get you won't get a bite on the Torx screws on this. So kind of unfortunate, because others of progs I've seen just use a number 2 Phillips and without issue. Oops, let's go back a little bit. Sorry about that. You're going to need an Ethernet cable to connect it to your computer. And there's the bottom of the router. You have to take these rubber feet off the corners to expose the screws, and then you take the screws out with your T10 Torx security bit. This is a picture of the insides. Wanted to show it to you just in case. This lid on this router, really hard to get off. It took a lot of pressure and a lot of pulling to get it off. I actually used a plastic spatula to pry it off, and it came off much easier than using brute force to get it off using that. And if you use brute force, it's likely that you're just going to throw the router across the room. That's how hard that lid is on this router. So careful with that. And if you don't want to get the motherboard broken, or and worse than that, you don't want to lose these little connectors to the main board of the router, because they're really hard to get back in, number one. Number two, they're really fiddly, and there's only so many times you can actually do it. And if you do it wrong, you can actually hurt those connectors. So this picture's here to show you the wiring and which wires go where, in case you actually pull those off, because it's going to be a little tough to solder on. Here's a closer view of those connections and where the wires go. And then we're going to go here. This is the serial connection where these are the pins I put into the board on the serial connection, which is junction 3. Here you see on the side of the board. It's 5 pads. They already had solder in them, which made it harder to put these pins in. Ground is the first one, closest to the front of the router. Then you skip a pad and go to the third pad, which is receive. Then you go to the fourth pad, which is transmit. And yes, I know it's an ugly job, but it's a tight spot and I didn't have a lot of room to work there. And the solder in the actual holes made it even harder, but there they are, they're in there, they worked. The serial connection parameters, we're going to need those to configure the software that talks to the breakout board that we use to connect the serial. So those are the parameters for it, but more on that later. Go next. There's a CP2102 breakout, USB to serial, and it's just a closer look at it so you can see how I got the cables hooked up to it. And here it is connected to the router, not to the computer, but to the router. I got ground going to ground. I've got transmit going to receive, and I've got receive going to transmit. You have to cross them so they can talk to each other. Okay, so that's how that goes. Here's a sketch of how you would connect all this and the paths that you would use. Okay, and again the parameters for the serial connection. I'll show you where that happens, why that's relevant soon. You're going to need the Ethernet cable connected to the back of the router on any of the LAN ports. That's the blue ports, not the yellow. It's not going into the internet. These are one of these 4 ports on this side. Do not use the internet. It will not work. The other side of the other end of the cable, of course, goes into your computer or your laptop or whatever machine you're using that has an Ethernet connection on it that allows you to, basically run Windows and talk to this router. These notes that I used to basically guide me through this video and also to help you too will be on the video in the video description below with the links to all these routers, all this software, and all this information. It's a little. There's a bit to it, but it's just if you follow it step by step, you can do it. Now, I take zero responsibility for any damage done to your router, computer, whatever, in following these instructions. Strictly educational, and I'm assuming that you are going to take 100% responsibility for whatever you do with your equipment. Like I said, this is just basically educational. So I take zero responsibility for that. Now, I haven't had much problem here. It's actually saved my router, so that's a good thing. Let's go here. First thing we need to do is, let's just start going to the information that actually got me this solution. Let's go here. Okay, and by the way, right here, this is the router currently. You see that it's a Linksys EA8300 running DD-WRT. That's a third-party firmware, and here you can see it, that it's working, and not the Linksys default firmware. So we're going to take this off and revert it back to TP-Link's OEM, or what came with the router firmware. Now, how did I learn to do this? Well, I went most of the information I got from this website, which is OpenWRT.org, and it has the EA8300 and a lot of specifications and steps on how to, put OpenWRT on it if you wish to, and also how to upgrade it or debrick, as they say here. And here's some of the instructions, including the Uboot fix here, and the other information, which is kind of cryptic, but I'll show you how to do the serial fix here, okay? And if you go down here a little further, you'll see pictures of the router itself taken apart. Probably not as clear as mine. Here's the serial pinout and the configuration for the serial, which I will walk you through, okay? So again, links for this stuff in the video description below. So here we're gonna go to the next thing. All right, we need to get the stock firmware for the router. Now, that was a really hard thing to find. For some reason, Linksys, I don't know where they put it on their webpage, but it's like, I don't know, if you guys can find a link for it, I would appreciate it, but I couldn't find it anywhere, but I finally found somebody who linked to it, and this is the actual link to that firmware. So I'm going to copy that, and I would suggest that you do that from my video description. Here we're going to go paste. And what happens when you hit enter is you will get a download box or dialog, this is going to be downloaded. I'm going to download it to the stock firmware here that I've got in my downloads directory for EA83. So I'm going to put it there. I'm going to save it. That's that. Now we have the stock firmware. And next, we're going to go to the next step. Now, the next thing we need to do is, let's see if I got one here, is install this breakout e-serial to USB CP2102. And unfortunately, Windows doesn't have native drivers for it, but it's really easy to get it to work. So what we're going to do first is plug it into the computer using USB. It is, there we go. And you can see that it's going to try and configure it. All right. We need to go check it. So go to your Windows button down here, or basically any way you can get the device manager. We're going to go to the device manager. It says, oh, it's ready, set up and ready to go. Except if you look at device manager, it's not. So that's kind of a deceptive message there, isn't it? All right. So device manager tells you it's not running. So double click it, update the driver, and you get these options, right? Search automatically for drivers. Windows couldn't find any. Search for updated drivers on Windows Update. That's what you want to do. Now we go check for updates. And we got a Defender update. But here we go to optional updates. Okay. And here, driver updates. Silicon Labs. So there it is right there. That is the driver update for the 2101. Yeah, 2102. Anyway, there it is. Download and install. We're going to do that while it's doing. Okay, so there, we're up to date. You can check for updates again if you wish. Now we hit close, and you can see that the CP210X UART blah 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 is working okay now. Now what you need also to note here is that it is on COM3. Okay, yours might be 7, 5, 2, some other COM port. Mine is on 3, so that's important because we got to set the serial software up to talk to COM3. Okay, so remember that, or write it down, or whatever. So there we got the CP2102 serial breakout working. I also will include in the video description links to the actual driver from Silicon Labs. If you can't get Windows Update to do it, you can manually install it with those drivers that I show here. Okay, next thing we need to do is download Putty. What is Putty? Putty is the software that we'll be using to talk to that serial breakout board. So Putty, just type in Putty and do a search for Putty. You'll find it. Again, so there's Putty, and where we're going is here where it says green end. Putty, a free SSH telnet client. That's where we're going. Here we're going to go scroll down a little bit, and you will see download Putty under sitemap. Latest release is 083, so click on that. You go to the download page. We're going to download the 64-bit x86 version because that's what the processor and operating system that I'm running is. So we're going to click that. And we're going to put that in downloads again under the Putty subfolder. Right? There we go. Okay, so it's downloaded. Now we got to install it. So let's do that. The easiest way to do the installation is go here, go to the folder. There we go, there it is. Double click it. Click next. Leave all the defaults. Yep, sure. Yes to that question. And then view README, we don't need to do that. We'll hit finish. At this point, you should have a new program up here called Putty, and you do. Next, let's open that up. We're going to configure it. And where we want to go is to serial connection. So we need to configure the serial connection. And as you remember, I said we're going to go back to a picture
So let's go videos. There we go. To my serial connection properties. Actually, we can go here, and you can see it here at the serial. But you know, down here, there it is. It's on my pictures that I showed at the beginning too. 11.5.2002.8N1. Well, what does that mean? I'll show you what that means. We go here to Putty. We've opened it up. Go to serial. We're going to change this to COM3 for me. Yours may be different. Your device manager will tell you what COM port that Silicon Labs board is on. And it's going to be 11. Oops. Let's go here. 115200. Don't put the hyphen in there or anything like that. Just that. 8 bits. Yeah. Stop bits are 1. Yeah. Parity is none. That's what this means here. And X on, X off. Just leave that alone and just say open. Okay. So it does that. It doesn't matter. What matters is that it's now set. We're going to go to sessions. We're going to load the serial connection. Serial connection. There we go. You see it says serial, COM3, and the right speed. And now we're going to hit open. And it doesn't look like much is happening, right? But here's how you test this. Turn off the router, turn it on. You see a bunch of data moving through, you got it right. Okay? There you go. I just shut off the router. But now we got Putty configured correctly, and it looks like it's talking back and forth. One more thing to check is boot it again, and just press the keys on your keyboard lightly. You don't have to hammer it, and that should stop the boot, as you saw right there. Right now, you can type. We're at the basically what they call the command line of the router. Boom. Right, and this is how we're going to take over the router and make it do what we want it to do. Okay, so it's working. Putty's set up. Now we got to set up another program called TFTPD. It's a TFTP server that this one will suck the information from. Basically, it'll download the firmware from the TFTP server into the router, and then it'll be functional with the stock firmware and basically functional to day one. So, okay, we've got that down. We've got it completely installed. Now we're going to go and download TFTP D64. I've got the actual link for it here. But if you want to go and go searching for it, just put in TFTPD64 and search it. There we go. Open source TFTP server. Go there. TFTPD64 download page here. Okay, and we're going again to the 64-bit installer exe here, and we're going to put it in TFTPD64 folder under my downloads and save. Then, as I said before, the easiest way to go to that folder is just hit the folder button here off the download, and there we go. Double click it. Yes, we want to save it. Next. Sure, and this is important. The firewall. Make sure it's got the check mark there. And if this process doesn't work, if the router can't talk to TFTPD, usually the number one reason for that is well, actually there's a couple, but the number one is the firewall is stopping you. Turn the Windows firewall off, or your virus checker firewall, or whatever firewall you got on, off, or allow it to go through. And that's what that setting does. Other than that, the other thing that stops it is incorrect configuration of, anything. This has to be done correctly or we just won't talk. Here we're going to hit finish. There we go. Now TFTPD is installed. Back to my notes. Here we're going to back to our image, because we got to prep the image to have the router download it. So we got TFTPD done. We don't need to look at this anymore. Off to my downloads folder, which should be over here. There we are, downloads. TFTP. Here we're going to go to the stock firmware, and we're going to copy this file. Here we go. And we're going to put it in the C drive, in the program files, under TFTPD64 right there. We're going to drop it in that folder, and it's going to ask for administrative rights. If you don't have them, then, you know, I would say there's, I'll show you another way to do it, but right now we're just going with this. So it's in here. Next thing we're going to do is rename that file. Okay, we're going to call that file Dallas, because that's what what the router is going to be looking for. It's going to be looking for a file called Dallas.img on a TFTP server, and this is where the TFTP server is currently serving up files from. So you have to put it in the root directory of the Now there is a way of telling TFTPD64 where this file is, other than putting it in this folder, but this is, for me, just trying to keep it as simple as possible. Drop it in this folder and go from there. All right, so let's continue on our list. We've got this configured to 152 to correct IP address. All right, so at this point, we're almost ready to go. We're going to start TFTPD. So we'll go to the Start button, TFTPD64. If we go to Show Directory here, you'll see that the Dallas image file is there. Like I said, there is a way of changing it. You go to Browse, and you can put it anywhere. But we'll just leave it like this. This is simpler. You see that 192.168.1254 is in here for a network address, so that's good. Here we want to click on the log viewer. As that, it's going to show you what's going on as we do this process. Now, we did stop this, so let's just do it one more time. I'm going to shut off the router, turn it back on again, and we're going to just press keys on the keyboard, and that stops it. See, or you get hit any key to stop auto boot. There it is, right? So at this point, what we're going to do is the flash procedure is ready to go. So let's go back to my notes. And you can see that Uboot command line Putty commands. I have them right here. So run flash image one is the first one we're going to use. Run flash image or image img2 is the second one we're going to do. And what these do is they flash the firmware onto each partition. So the first command, this one, will flash the stock firmware onto the first partition of the router. The second one we're going to run, which is run flash img2, will flash to the second partition of the router. That way, both partitions will be the same, and you'll be able to watch this basically happen live here. And when you reboot, doesn't matter which partition you go to, both of them will have the stock firmware, which is safe and okay. All right, so ready to do it. I've got my TFTPD over there. I got Putty over here. I'm just going to hit enter on that command. And you can see what's going on. It's basically connected to this server. It's downloading that file, which is Dallas, over to it. And if you look over here, you'll see it. Dallas image, right? And it's just basically copying it over. As it should. This is what should be happening, right? So this will rescue it. This will revert it back to the stock Linksys router firmware. My apologies if I said TP-Link before. Okay, so here, all right, so now it's done, written okay, everything's good, 100%, right? So what we're going to do again is that same command, only this time we're just going to add a 2 to the end of it, and that'll do the second partition. We'll do that. Perfect. That's about as long as it takes to do that. And then what we're going to do when it's back to the command point, you can just shut it off and turn it back on again. I'm just going to type in reset, which will make it reboot. Okay, so here we're just going to type in reset and it'll start rebooting. Reset. There we go. You can see it's rebooting. This time we don't press any. We want it to boot all the way up. There we go. Now I've included a couple more commands underneath those two, as you can see. Run boot part 1, run boot part 2, which basically from the serial connection, if you stop it, you can tell the router to either run the first partition or the second partition by using these two commands. Okay, but that's just basically playtime. You know, if you're going to play with it, that's another nice thing to have. And again, a great resource is that OpenWRT website, this one here. Okay, so if you want to play a little bit or learn more about it, go there. But here, all we're doing is restoring it. So here we're going to go, oh yeah, well, we've got it flashed, so we don't need the network card configured to that IP address anymore. So what we're going to do, well, let's go back to the very beginning. Right-click the network icon, open Network Internet Settings, scroll down to Network Sharing Center. Actually, well, that'll work, but let's go back. Sorry, change adapter options is where we're going. We're going to right-click this, hit Properties, go over here to TCP/IP version 4, and then hit the radio button so that both DNS server and IP address happen automatically. Hit OK and OK again. Go back to see what's going on. Seems to have settled down here. No, here's a little bit more going on there. Let's go back here. We're going to type in 192.168.1.1. Enter. And there's Linksys. That's it. Now we just use your old password. Now, if you don't know what the password is here, reset this to the factory. In other words, the way it was when you took it out of the box, no password at all, or put your own password in. Hold the reset button while it's on, like at this state, for 10 seconds, and it'll reset the router. You just reconfigure it, and off you go again. You've got it set up to go, and basically brand new out of the box. So I'm just going to put my old password in here because it does retain that, which is weird. There it is. All right, and then here we are inside the Linksys router. Perfect. Okay. Now here's another neat, kind of like weird thing to know. Let's see. Is it under connectivity? Yes. No, it's not. Okay. Connectivity is where you check for updates. Here you would check and see if you got a new update. And I would check, and I will check right now. I'll just click the button, see if anything comes up. It is connected to the internet. I do have an internet, yeah. And it says new firmware available, and I'm going to click that and make it happen, okay? But there's another thing too, okay? Let me show you another thing. In the troubleshooting, there is one neat thing under diagnosis. Restore previous firmware. So if something messes up, if you can get to this point and hit restore previous firmware, it will restore the old firmware, and hopefully that fixes your problem. But the ultimate fix is coming in here on serial and flashing it the way I showed you to do, putting the correct firmware in there, and basically rocking and rolling it like I have in this video. I think that takes care of all of it. At this point, it's restored, no longer running DD-WRT. It's working with the old firmware, and that's how you restore or recover an EA8300 Linksys router. And good luck with that. Put your comments and suggestions and anything you want to say to me in the comment section below. Again, all my notes, all the links to all this stuff and software and settings will be in the video description. Remember to use those links. You help me out. Also, if you like my channel and this video helped you out in some way, give me a like, a big thumbs up. and subscribe to my channel. Choose the bell icon to be notified every time I put up a new video, and that way you can watch my content as it comes up at your own leisure. All right, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it very much. Take care of yourself, and we'll see you in the next video.